Hi, everyone. My name is Roy. I'm from Symmetrics. I'm leading product management at Symmetrics. And today we have a very interesting topic, which probably everyone is saying that, in the beginning of the webinar. But the main kind of, trend that we're seeing, and I'll explain a bit more about Symmetrics and what does it mean, like the top 10 metrics. But I guess the headline makes sense if you are here, so I can cut to the main items and then go back to explain about the high level. But what I see today, what we see is that there are many, you know, uh, um, guidelines and many articles on how should we report on cybersecurity to leadership, to other stakeholders, more technical, less technical. The main challenge that we see is that most of the articles are very theoretical, and it's very hard to take them and make them practical and really understand, all right, we agree with the article. Now, what do we do with it? And at Symmetrics, we actually started with building infrastructure that would allow uh, to report to leadership and to all relevant stakeholders. And it's much more practical, practices. And in today's session, I want to kind of mainly focus on what it means to report to the board of leadership, report on cybersecurity, and what are the current challenges, why it's important, and what is our kind of suggestions and best practices on what you should do. I'll try to make it more practical so it will not end up as another kind of theoretical kind of webinar. But of course, if you have any question after the webinar, if you want to get more into the details, then feel free to contact me. I'll share my email, even though you should have it, but I also have it here on the last kind of slide. And feel free to contact me if you have any information or more information is needed. So let's start. I think first of all, before diving into the details, it's important to understand why should we even care? Like why we should invest so much time in reporting to leadership. I think by now it's pretty much obvious, but I still wanted to cover the main topics on what we see, what our customers, and I see some customers also here in the webinar. So what our customers are telling us on why it's important for them to report on cybersecurity to the executive, to the leadership. First of all, it's really about getting the executive buy-in. We want to be their kind of partner. We want them to first them to understand what we are doing, why it's important to the organization, and we want to surface progress, but also gaps that we have that are crucial to justify future and past investment. Security, we know that it involves many different investments, if it's like products or people or processes that we need to implement. The investment is high. So we want to make sure we justify what we already have and how it helped us. But we also want to prepare the ground for future investment. So we want to say, okay, we are great with all these areas, but this area is still kind of lagging behind. This is what others are doing. This is how it will help us. And this is kind of, as a preparation for us requesting on the next meeting or within the same meeting, another kind of area we want to expand our security program to, and purchasing more tools or apply different processes. The second item is we want to make sure that we align priorities. And this is, I think, one of the main items within this presentation. What we see a lot is that there is a security organization oftentimes works in very in silos. There are many different teams, each team responsible on different products. They have different prioritizations. They're not aware of the other team, which is still the security team, what's their prioritization, what's more important for them. So that's a problem within the security organization, but that we need to solve, and I'll talk about it as well. But we want to make sure that at least from the business, from the kind of business perspective, we are aligning our security efforts and our security priorities with what the business cares about, with what's important to the business. I think the reason is obvious. I don't need to expand on that. I think the second reason that is maybe less obvious is because we want to make sure that next time we report, then we will make progress on the areas that everyone care about. Because if we will invest in areas that the leadership they don't care about, it's not the main purpose of the company right now, they will not care. So we can kind of work, and it will not be reflected, or anyone will actually appreciate that. another thing that we see more and more is that we want to make sure as CISO, the security leaders, that there is a shared responsibility. Security, obviously, is managed, and the main kind of objective of the security organization is to eventually reduce the risk, reduce the exposure. But it's not something that the security organization is responsible 100%, right? Many other stakeholders within the organization are involved, all the way to all the users, different departments, different roles within the company. It's not just about the security; they're responsible to enforce and track that. But if the organization, if the entire organization, starting with leadership, will understand that this is something everyone should care about, we'll be able to provide clear communication around what is the risk and how it should affect the organization. Once everyone will feel more committed to that, then we believe that it will be easier to implement processes and changes and to enforce our policies eventually without chasing people. But it starts with, first of all, communicating what's important, what's less important, and what is our ask from them. And it starts from working out with the different executives so they can follow with their kind of colleagues and teams. And then the last item is around, when things go wrong, and it might happen, we want to make sure that everyone understand that we did the best we can. We applied all the frameworks. We have all the defenses that are in place. We did everything right to prepare for that, emergency kind of event. So, and this doesn't happen like in one time. So something goes wrong, and why did we do something with that? It's something we need to slowly build, kind of to build trust and confidence between security and the executives, so they understand what we're doing is first aligned with the business, and that's the most impactful kind of items or route that we can take to reduce the risk for the organization. So even if things will go wrong, we are still kind of in the I hope good area, that everyone understand we did everything together. It also ties into the buy-in, to the shared responsibility, and to aligning priority. It's kind of the outcome of all that. So I think this is kind of just wanted to cover like the why it's important. Second, I want to, I get to talk with many different, of our customers and prospects, and one of the main use cases that people are coming to Symmetrix is, I want to improve the way I report to leadership. And the first question I ask usually is, what are you doing today? What is the current state? So I can say that this is something I see really repetitive among many customers, and this is something we want to improve together. But if I wanted to cover the current state, what we see today is, first, there is no consistent method or way to report. And that's hard, because if every time I want to report to leadership, every quarter or a monthly basis, we oftentimes see I need to invent the wheel and invent a new format and new structure. It's first obviously hard for the other side to understand. I need to explain again again and again. But I think the bigger problem is that I can't really improve. I think no one expects that the first time you report, or let's say first time you report to a new executive, or you are the new CISO, or you are a new security leader, it will be amazing. It's like building like a company, or building like a startup. You start slowly, you gain trust, but you also get their feedback. So, and this is important to improve. And if you don't have a method, a consistent way to report, it's very hard to improve, because you can't really incorporate their feedback with your method, because there is no method. The second item that we see is that it's a very manual process. Reporting to leadership, what we see today, it involves so many pieces, from working with the different product SMEs, with the different product owners, getting the data from the tools, aggregating, visualizing, defining policy on what we even want to measure, what is good, what is bad, what's the best way to present it, is it too technical, not enough technical. It's a really time-consuming process, and it's very manual. We do see customers in different maturity levels. Some are just taking screenshots from their from the different product UIs, and some are using like Tableau or Power BI, which are more mature. But I think the one thing that is common among all the different maturity levels is that it's a very a manual process, and I think it also kind of comes into, it's very hard to improve when the process is manual, because by the time you want to incorporate the feedback, you need to start the process again. You don't really have time to to really improve, because you are like wasting time with like, you know, picking the pieces and not really finding a better story or improving your story. Next, we really see that today it's very hard to align priorities with the business. I think the main item is because there is no method and it's a manual process. You're very busy with the details because you need to not need, but you start with the details with all the technical information, and then you want to visualize the risk in different ways. But it's very hard to do it when you're so invested in the kind of the foundation part. So what we see today is it's very hard for security organizations to report on areas that are connected to what the business care about. And this is why one of the areas that I mentioned before, that this is one of the items that it's important to measure or important to report. Then the last item is something that I talked about at the beginning. We see today that one of the challenges is customers, they don't know where to start. There are many things, like if you will find search on Google or ChatGPT or any search engine, you'll get endless results on what's the best way to report to the board. This is the golden metric. This is the golden structure. But the problem is that it's very theoretical. What our experience working with data and really working into in the details, there is a long kind of distance between this is what you need to do and then transforming that to how. It's a big gap in between. When you want to transfer, okay, this is what I want to do, into how should we do it, there are many questions that involved, and this is something that no one really tells you about this part. And then I think this is caused kind of different leaders or their teams to basically not use these suggestions, because the gap is too there is no, it's like the gap is too big between the theory and the practical. I think what we see today, gathering from screenshots from customers and changing the data, this is what we see today. This is how customers report, mainly Excel spreadsheets. Some are Tableau, as I said, but as you see, it's not close to be consistent. And in most time, there is no method. And when there is no method, and usually security leaders are technical, it gets to the technical details pretty fast, and then it can be a bit challenging. But this is what we see today. These are examples are very relevant from different customers that we gathered. I think the one important message that I wanted to bring is that everyone are looking for the magic metric, for this golden metric. Sometimes I get emails, let me know what is the best metric I need to share with the board. So I have to say that it doesn't exist. What we see is that there is no magic metric that you will need to have. Okay, take this metric and everyone will be happy. It doesn't exist. So if I wanted to change the mindset and to change the expectation from you, not necessarily from Symmetrics, but from you, it doesn't exist. It's more about how do we build the right story that will resonate with leadership, that will resonate with the team after that, with the security team, because they need to execute based on that, with the security, with engineering, with all the relevant stakeholders. And this is what we see today. This is what you need to invest with, how to build the right story and not the golden metric, because it's very hard to do, and almost I think it's really impossible. All right, so I wanted to show an example on kind of different ways that we build reports for some of our customers on how they kind of approach their kind of board meetings and reporting. There are many kind of different aspects here and many different pieces. I don't have time to get into all of that. Of course, after that we can have a follow-up discussion. But overall, there are few kind of items that we see are important to report on. I have to say one disclaimer: there is no one report that fits all. What we see is that it's very important to have a flexible and customizable kind of machine or foundation, so you can adjust quickly to the kind of board requirement, because it can really vary between different organizations, or even within the organization, different leadership, different executives, they might have different requirements. So it's important to have a good engine that will allow you to adapt fast. But overall, what we see today, there are a few key areas that are important to report on. First, define the method, and most of this presentation will be on the method part. This is we think very important part of this puzzle. Second, we often and this is really feedback that we see customers are reporting today on how the environment looks like, how the product's kind of being used, or what's their usage or performance, what is the current gap that they have, how are they going to improve that. And actually we do see some board kind of report, even though everyone is saying it shouldn't be technical, don't show metrics, don't show data. It's true, 90% true, because there are some key areas you want to get into the details with executives. You want to make sure it will not be, too many metrics, but there are some areas we see many customers, they call it the key metrics or favorite metrics, that they want to do show the details even within this high kind of level kind of report, or with this kind of high level Zoom that they show to the executive. In this presentation, I'll focus more on the method, just from the sake of time. But I want to focus on the method because I think this is the most kind of important area from all this kind of different parts. So what is the method? And this is what we want to bring to the table, this kind of structure on how to build your story, top to bottom, and how we can automate everything. So we think, first of all, as I said, one of the challenges is that there is no consistent method. This is why the first thing you should do is to choose a method. The method will eventually help in two ways. It's in two directions. One, if you're talking about on leadership, it will help communicate your story in a way that will resonate with leadership. On the other hand, from the security team, from engineering, on the technical side, it will help you create a plan, a unified plan that is really well prioritized. Because today, to reduce the risk, everyone knows there are many problems, many CVEs and users with problems, awareness issues, training, many problems. But the question is, where do we start? So and the answer is you need to start with what's most impactful, with the real risk. Okay, that's good as a slogan, but how should we do that? But we think that a good way to do it is once you finalize and you have a good method, then you can align your entire organization based on this method. So if you're saying we're going with A, B, and C, this is how you report, this is how you prioritize to the teams, and everyone needs to be aligned with that. Now the question is how should we choose a method? The short answer is that it doesn't have to be one method. You can combine multiple methods to report on different point of views. You can also switch, and you can also experiment to see what works better, what makes more sense for leadership, what makes more sense to the teams. Few kind of very let's say common and heavily used method that we see our customers are using, and we also invest in that, is one from the report on frameworks. I think this is like the most let's say legacy, or not legacy, but the most kind of old way of reporting. Maybe not all, because we do see that many organizations are this is their primary way that they report today. They follow NIST CSF 1 or 2, but basically they choose like a framework that will guide them on they want to show their maturity, the assessment on a yearly basis, and then work with the team on that. And there are some challenges with that. Another a bit more advanced kind of method is to work with objectives. This is where you apply your own security policies, your own objectives, regardless of what NIST are saying. You your business better. You know what's the requirement from leadership and from other kind of teams within the company. You want to create your own objectives and your own policies, and make sure you track that. And this is how you want to prioritize. Another kind of way that is relatively new is from a threat perspective. So you can work with different TI systems or different like MITRE framework, and understand what are the trending threats, what are the main campaigns that are out there, and then you need to find a way to take that and understand how your organization is exposed to that. But from a leadership perspective, you want to tell them what's your exposure against the well-known common threats and well-known like attack groups and tactics and all that. So this is something we see. It's a relatively new concept. We do see some customers are talking about that. The last item is reporting your security programs. It might be at some point a bit technical. So what we see customers are reporting on how their entire posture is performing across all the different cybersecurity programs. But when it gets into one level kind of deeper, then they break it down by different programs: identity awareness, vulnerabilities, security awareness, and then they want to measure the effectiveness and the progress of each of one of their security programs. That's another way that we see. Now, today I want to focus on two main items here. I can talk a lot about each one of those, but I want to focus on these two. So let's start. So the first kind of use case is to report on programs. This is something that we see actually very common. It comes with different names. We see customers are using security programs or domains or areas, but the concept is similar. We segment our security organization based on different security programs, and then we measure each one of those with different metrics and measurements. We'll get into that. One challenge that we have with that is that it might sound a bit technical. So we see customers are stopping in this level. So they just say, this is our overall score across all our programs. If there is a specific question from the crowd, they can zoom in into one of the programs or use the key metrics. But usually it stay here. But you still need to have all this segmentation and all the foundation to understand how this is being performing and what's your progress. Because usually the main kind of key points executives want to know is how we're performing right now compared to previous month or quarter, and what are the next steps that we want to do. It doesn't really help if we say we are 67% or we are good or bad. It's a matter of comparing to previous kind of time frame and what will be next or what we need to do to improve. The second kind of method is around objective. So, and this kind of changes a bit the discussion. Instead of saying we are this with vulnerability management or this with identity, which non-technical people might not understand, this is a bit more business-driven language. This is more about what's our objectives, what are the areas that we care about, that we are investing on. So we can say we are the primary objective. We want to strengthen our security posture, we want to build cyber resilience, we want to sustain vigilance, and make sure we sustain with compliance standard. Each one of these sub items, each one of the objective will get its own score, progress, and everything that is needed. And we can talk with leadership in that level, on a high level, on what are the objectives. We want to tell them that this is aligned with their requirements, with the business needs, and this is our progress. We see customers also, they can tweak that a bit to work with the question and not objective. So instead of strengthening our security posture, they will say, are we secure? Are we vigilant? Are we compliant? It's just a matter of having something that is like more narrative, that easy to have like a conversation, not just show identity 5 or vulnerability management 3. It's more a conversation, a discussion that is easier for less technical people to understand. If I'll take this at the right side, the objective, let's follow the structure of what needs to be done in order to have this entire method work. Because again, right now it's still theoretical, right? I'm still saying, okay, do that. Now the question, what do we need to do? So I don't want to stop here. I want to show you like a full flow on how we can get into this, how we can show progress for this method. And the flow that we'll show right now, it can apply to every other aspect, threats, programs, frameworks, everyone. It's the same method, just changing the spotlight. So if I'll take strength and security posture, the next step that I need to do is to define the objectives, to define the policies that we want to that are part of this objective, high level objective. And this we don't have to show that to executive. I just want to show you what is the best way to get into this level of reporting. So we need to make sure to define how should we answer this question. How should we determine if we are strengthening our security posture? So this is built by kind of different security policies or sub-objectives. You can find different names for that. But eventually, we want to ensure our IT assets are secured, vulnerabilities are remediated. We maintain IT, asset inventory. We responding to incidents. We have obviously behind the scene a set of objectives that are part of this high level kind of method. And then the next level, when we kind of dive deeper, is okay. So how do we know that? How do we know if we ensured IT assets that are secured and according to industry best practices? The way we do that is by applying different and many metrics. Security metrics, I didn't want to start with metrics, even though our name is CMetrics, but metrics, this is the foundation for everything. Once you have a good metric layer, automated and a streamlined metric program or automated metric program, you can build any story that you want. It's just a matter of changing the perspective or the spotlight. But you see that here behind the scene, the number of unpatched or end of life or any other metric, I can group them in different way and then report on, vulnerability program, or then report on ransomware readiness, or report on NIST kind of CSF requirement. It's just a matter of packing or grouping the metrics in a different way. But the challenge is first, what is the best way to group that? We have the answer for that. The second question is, how do we measure that? How do we? It involved, products, stakeholders, really like specific skill set of both security and analytics. And this is the part where we really kind of invested. So we invested in two ways. One, building the metrics, and second, building the method. One cannot live without the other. If you have a method without metric, it's very hard to achieve. If you have metrics without method, no one will care, because so what? I don't understand the concept, the context, or the relation between them. So this is what I want to say. You can apply this method on everything. You can decide, I want to report on programs or objectives, or I want to go with questions. This is the sub areas I want to assess to answer the high level question, and these are the metrics below that will help me assess that. And once every metric will have a score or a policy attached to it, so we can say what good looks like, because it doesn't matter that we are, scanning 80% of our environment or 20% people fail the campaign. The question is, okay, is it good or bad? So we need to apply a threshold or to define what good looks like for every metric. And then the scores will stack up all the way to the high level score that will say we are, 9 out of 10 or 90%. And then it's not just a number. There are data points and many things that goes behind this number to back your story, because it's very important to back your story and to show how you got into this number. But once you have this process, that everything is organized based on that, and you have answers for everything. Even if there is an executive that really understands cybersecurity somehow, you can get with him all the way to the event or asset level if he wants to. Usually it's not the way. Okay. By the way, if you have any question, feel free to send in the Q&A or in the chat. All right. I think we have 10 minutes. I'll try to go faster. I think we kind of understood, I kind of explained how metrics can help, but I see metrics really as a puzzle. You can build them in different ways, get different stories. But it's very important to have this metric program. From our perspective, a couple of things metrics are important, or things you need to make sure your metrics are capable to do, is make sure they're continuous, historical, contextualized, flexible, and actionable. That was pretty fast. I'll try to break it down here in more details. So first of all, they need to be continuous. It means that you have to make sure you use some kind of live feed from the different tools, because it's very hard to do it manually. Export, import, very hard. We see some of the BI tools that can solve that with different integrations. It's really important to have historical information and not always like a snapshot in time, because the main question from leadership is if we improved or not. What was the status 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? So we want to make sure we keep track and have a trend of everything. It also have to be contextualized. Without applying context into the metric, it will not be relevant. Reporting on how many critical or how many assets we have, what's the mean time to remediate vulnerabilities, just by itself, it's useless. We need to apply context, like BIA, business impact analysis. We need to apply, to incorporate our business unit, our critical assets, our environment, our owners. Everything is important. And this is why today it's a bit challenging, because things are siloed. The vulnerability team doesn't really have information about the ServiceNow CMDB and their kind of records of what they measure. But it's very important to combine everything together, because then everything is much more enriched and aligned with the business, or at least you can make sure that you align with the business. So if the business talks with in application language, and you talk with like CVEs or vulnerabilities, that's a disconnect. So you need to make sure that you can take this data, apply it on your practices, and report based on that, and prioritize based on that. So this is why it's important to have context. It has to be actionable. Like you need to apply also a policy on what's good, bad, or really bad, because you need to take action based on that. It's not just for, you have nice charts, even though some people like that, but you can have nice charts, but also make sure some of them or most of them are actionable, that you can show progress or improvements based on that. All right, I want to talk in like 5 minutes, and then I'll leave 5 minutes for questions. So I want to talk about how we kind of approach that. So for us, it was very important. First, I'll go back one. It was very important to make sure everything is continuous and that we can collect data from the tools because we want to shorten the time it takes to create good metrics. So we connect to the different tools. We build metrics with all the different items that I created here, and then we provide a really rich metric library. We have our own kind of best practices on how we think each kind of method should be measured, but we also want to keep it customizable and flexible for customers to define different metrics. But we really kind of shorten the time it takes to build the metric, because I think when I said practical versus theory, no one said how to build metrics, how to explore the data, how to answer like 1 million questions that every metric brings. So we solve that. We have you ready to use metrics from our library for different products, for different use cases, for different domains, or a different method that I define. All you need to do is define the method, use our different method that we suggest based on our templates that we provide, and then everything from there, everything will be applied. The structure, the metrics, all that. So this is what I wanted to show on our kind of perspective. There are a few examples here, but I think we kind of understand the idea. I see a question. Wait, let me just make sure we answer the question because we have 5 minutes. Okay, let me open that. Okay, let's see the question. Maybe. Maybe it's a different screen. 1 second. Okay, I don't see the question, but I'll try to solve that. All right, so I'll just check it in a second. So I know I have 5 minutes. I just created different visuals from the product on how we can present some of the items that I discussed here. And then the report that I presented at the beginning, this is what we can export from the environment, and then we can share with the different stakeholders. But it's really about getting the zoom in and zoom out from the data, from the metric level, data level, to the high level scoring system and kind of different visualizations. So, but I think we can kind of get into that. I'll answer the question in a second. Feel free to send more questions. But there are many things that we can share more about here. More how the method should be measured, how the method should be what's the narrative for each method, and all the way down from the method, objective, policies, and then metrics. I'll be happy to continue the discussion. So feel free. This is my email. So feel free to reach out. And I think we have 5 minutes, so we can leave it for questions. I just need to understand how to answer the question. So maybe I'll stop sharing the presentation for a second, and maybe it will show a question. Okay, now it shows the question. Okay. All right. How do you bring together top-down and bottom-up metrics on assets? So I think the question is, how do you bring together top-down and bottom-up metrics? For example, top-down metrics on assets in compliance versus bottom-up metrics like scorecard for the quality of system build. So I'm not sure. I hope I understand, but what we see today is that, first of all, yes, the metrics can be in different levels. Some metrics are more high level, and some are more in the details. It's just a matter of from our perspective, how you slice and dice the data. You have a metric, you can really say, okay, I only want to see specific severity, internet-facing assets, on runtime, on ABC, all these different kind of data points and filters, and just show me that. And it can be more, for a specific use case, rather just show me all the critical vulnerabilities that we have, even though it's without context. But the way we did it is for every metric, we attach the policy. And then we can understand if the metric is good or bad. So it's not just a metric for information. It's actionable metric. So if the metric is violating the threshold of the policy, we will know about that. And then this will stack up to be a high level score. So we calculate the score based on how the metrics are performing. So I hope this answers the question. If not, let me know, or you can feel free to send me an email. Okay, we matured in automation. Python, right? At least. Okay, I'll read the question. We have matured in automation and orchestration of metrics, Python and Power BI, at least from screenshots and Excel. We are missing buying on method. Any advice on getting leadership choose method? Yeah, that's a good point. So I think the high level question is that there is a good maturity, and I'm happy to hear that with the structure, with the infrastructure. Um, and then, okay, I'll repeat the questions just to make sure everyone understands. So the question is that they're more mature with the metric side, with the metrics and BI, and I guess more automation around getting the data from the tools. But the challenging part is getting the buy-in from leadership and choosing a method. So what we see today is really about experimenting different methods. We can provide few examples that work for our customers, and usually they work pretty good with leadership. So once you experiment with one method, or you can actually try couple in one report, see what works better, but try without like really confusing. So you can incorporate, objective levels or on threads and programs and see what resonate more with the team. But if your metric program are good, then we can suggest a few kind of method that you can use. I see another question. Or do you see that? I'm not sure. So the question if data analyst should push the method or leadership does not always understand. I'm not sure it's a data analyst unless it's someone from security. Usually we see that the BI team or data analyst team is like outside of security, so they don't really understand security. This is why it was important for us to build like a security-driven analytics tool. But I think obviously leadership, I agree, it's hard to explain some of the items. I think the discussion should be more from from the if you're in cyber, so that's yeah. So first of all, that's a privilege. We don't see a lot of security-driven analysts, so that's great. And I think yes, if you're in a position that you understand cyber and you have analytics capabilities, you can come with much more method that will resonate with leadership. I think just try to get away from the technical items and maybe less about the security programs, more about like objectives and questions. If this is what will work better for them. Wait, I see more questions. Sure, no problem. Do you find? Yeah, okay. So there is a question if most of the reports that we see today are more based on like operational metrics, similar to the flow that I showed today, or it's more on the business side, like dollars and money and cost. I'll share my experience. I saw many different like board reporting and different kind of versions. Most organizations that I worked with, they lean toward the how to tell the metric side better. I think there's another kind of method around the quantification kind of area, cybersecurity quantification, all this method that try to quantify cyber risk to dollars. We see that it's a bit more challenging and hard to make it real. Um, so eventually it's hard to take actions based on that, and it's really hard to prioritize based on that. And if the report is disconnected from what the team is investing on in a day to day, I don't think it will work, because no matter what we will do, it will not improve the next report. So we have to to find a way to tell the story on what the teams are doing, or make sure the teams are doing the right things, and then find a way to tell this story. So this is what we see more the operational metrics. I think the main challenge today is that usually it's technical, but we hope that using this method, it will take it to another level, one level higher, without immediately showing, how many incidents we had. Maybe that's like a third question, but maybe not necessarily. Maybe we can keep the high level on how our incident program is, or how we strengthen our security posture, or how we are against this well-known threat. Try to kind of tell the metric story, but not from the metric perspective, from the goal perspective. Why are we measuring that, right? So this is what I want to see. Okay, see things in the chat. Okay. So I think we have 1 minute. So let me know if you have any question here. I think I answered question. Yeah. But you have my email. So feel free. Oh, there is another question. Okay, I'll answer this question and then we can drop it. Feel free to send me. How do customers contextualize these operational metrics? Yeah, so the question is around how to contextualize metrics. This is a great question. I think context is the key, but it's also very challenging because wait, they need operational metrics in the story with non-operational. So I'm not sure what you mean by non-operational metrics. So if you can give an example, that would be great. But for the first part of the question, how customers contextualize, it's a problem. What they do today, it's a very manual process, trying to merge assets from different tools and to apply, the data of ServiceNow on Qualys, on their SIEMDB, on Tenable, and use the tagging system, use the SIEMDB, like ServiceNow as the source of truth, even though no one really has a good source of truth, but the best that they can have. And then they try to apply the logic. For example, we had a case where the business cared only about business applications. This is what they wanted to know. What's the risk for each application? But the teams, they cared about the vulnerabilities, the output that they got from the tools. So the only way to connect that and to prioritize based on application is to map applications into assets and then understand what are the vulnerabilities for these assets. But this connection, you have to have connection between ServiceNow and Qualys. And unless you have symmetric, you need to do it manually and in consistent way. So the short answer is that it's a very manual process. Okay, cost per control. Yeah, so what I do today with Symmetrics, we do measure controls. So you can report how your capabilities, control, defenses, there are different names for that. We are less focused on cost. And like right now, at least for how to quantify that in dollars, what we do, we allow customers to create manual metrics because we don't want you to report on, you know, everything can be automated from Symmetrics. And then other things that are important for them to go into Excel or to a different platform. So you can show everything, visualize everything within Symmetrics, but not everything can be automated. We focus more on the risk and programs and tools and the method that I presented, and less about the revenue or the cost around getting like a ransomware. It's more about how we protect it against ransomware, or what do we need to do to improve our protection. So I hope I answered. If not, feel free to shoot me an email. And yeah, I think we passed the time, but thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, obviously, if you have anything, I think I said that a couple of times. Feel free to share that. And thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.